All right, so we just had a brief demonstration with Neil here. So we're going to take a few minutes and just share our observations and reflections of the conversation. So I'd like to start with you, Neil, about what are some of your impressions or sensations from this? What's standing out for you?
I think the primary thing is that I started off seeing this kind of character or this phenomenon as a kind of combatant, and then by the end it was a kind of a kinder ally that I could skip off down the yellow brick road with, and it's, I don't know, I'm thinking of the word magic. I often think of the word magic when it comes to this sort of work, and I was just trying to kind of almost pinpoint, you know, when did that happen? You know, what was the kind of magic ingredient that kind of flipped that? You know, was it something in the relationship? Was it something, you know, within the field? Was it something within me that was lying dormant that just needed cajoling out? But so I think the kind of primary thing was movement from combatant to, you know, very thorny, gougy combatant to ally and Dorothy and her crew.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, maybe Anne and Vicky will have some insights about when they noticed that shift might have happened. And I can share mine at the very end. So Anne, do you want to give it a go? And what did you notice?
Well, what I noticed, as you are so elegant at doing, is you stay so much with what Neil says and don't vary from that. So right at the beginning, there was, when Neil was starting to describe what the issue was for him, there were whole lots of words that I would have loved to have, you know, like identity and all of these big words, and you didn't go after any of them. You just said, you know, as you observed that, how did you show up? So that's staying with that slight detachment, totally there, but slightly not getting into the commentary with him. That was the first thing I noticed.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And how about for you, Vicky?
So I think what I noticed was how present you were. And one of the ways that I could see that was there were times when Neil laughed a little bit and you immediately joined him, and it happened several times. And for me, it made me feel that you were very present and there with Neil. So in terms of creating a safety, for me, that was creating that safety. And I think it was lightening what was quite an intense and deep thing that Neil was sharing.
It almost felt like a shorthand, like, I got you, Neil. I can. There's a whole story you could be telling me right now, but I get the punchline already. And in a way, even sort of I felt it. Yeah, it was. I noticed that as well.
And then the other thing I noticed was, it seemed to me there was a bit of a pivotal moment when you, slightly from left field, if I may say, asked about how old he was.
Right.
And then what was I noticed about that, once again, is you stayed with, so what was the significance of that for you? And then that's the time when you, Neil, went just really quiet for a really long time and paused and closed your eyes, and you were clearly doing a lot of processing, it seemed like, from out here, in terms of where and what and how that landed for you. And David stayed silent for a really, it would have been a couple of minutes at least, I think.
Yeah, I think I used the word whim when I asked that question.
You did.
In part because my reflection was, I observed that that Neil is almost like jousting with this character. And when I asked him, has this been, have you experienced it other times in your life? And he said, yeah. And came up with this idea of being 5. And I thought, so, and I, was asking about what does the 5-year-old need? And, just trying to get a feel like, what is the origin story of this? And, and rather than like, we're not doing deep dive therapy, we're not in a retreat, and you spend an hour unpacking 5-year-olds experiences, but there was something about that said, just the tone with which there was a sweetness in a funny way in which you, Neil, were talking about this. And I thought, it's almost like, how like when you're in that young age, your imagination is so strong. And it was almost like this was like a buddy or something that was this character. And he's just like, come on, Neil, come on, like a little brother or something, just kind of poking at him. And I thought, oh, this is more benign than we might have thought. And so then there's an invitation. So why? So rather than ask that directly, I just said, so what's significant for you about that? And then, as you said, Andy, pulling him into this other space. Yeah.
I think that question, what's significant for you about that, for me was kind of so open. It didn't kind of, it was kind of direct, but it didn't land on anything specific.
Right. Or judge it as being negative even. Yeah.
Yeah. So that actually gave me a lot of choice and a lot of space in terms of how to respond, because I was thinking about the origin story, but then I thought, well, is it really what was interesting about that? I thought about the origin story, but then I thought, I guess what I did, and just thinking about it now, is I thought about other stories, not just the origin story. I thought about a story which was maybe a little bit more contemporary, or had kind of different characters in. So, and only just speaking about that now, am I sort of aware that I had that that choice at some level of consciousness was kind of going on in me. So that was quite interesting, very interesting.
Any other observations you two, well, actually, any of you would like to share?
Well, for one, that was 5 minutes into the conversation when you hit that piece of significance. So just, I noticed that you went, it was only 5 minutes. There was, it was spacious. You were very present, but you were also hitting something very deep after 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The other thing I think was the gesture, the use of you mirroring the gesture with the hand that Neil used.
Yeah.
Again, I could see how that brought safety. I think it again brought a sense of, well, holding up that mirror and that safety. Also that the voice, it was a character, and if the voice is a character, what is it drawing your attention to?
Yeah.
I loved that question.
Yeah, and that's when I think that's where your language started to really shift about the character, and even your face got a little bit softer, and like you're like, maybe I've been thinking about this all wrong. Maybe there's another way to look at this.
I think it's interesting. I mean, just on your comment, Vicky, about David mirroring the hand gesture. I almost felt like, oh right, this guy knows about jabbing. I can talk to him. Again, that wasn't conscious at the time, but it's like, oh right, okay, here's someone who gets that,
Yeah.
And I think the very nature of the question, I can't remember exactly what it was, but what's being called to your attention is such a kind of a beautiful kind of flip of why is it having a go at you? It's more invitational. It's a question that's got more possibility in it. It's got more breadth in it.
Yeah.
That's how it kind of felt.
And more compassion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this, I know one of the comments from the opening session for the module was this curiosity about compassion and candor. I know you raised that, and so these questions, as you're pointing out, Neil, are that way, that we're looking over here, but we have all this to play with. We're not looking over there. So I'm candid in the sense we're going to look at this, but I'm not holding any of the pieces of this in judgment. We're just observing them. And trying to make it safe for you to notice them yourself. Yeah. Yeah. Does this feel complete for now? Yeah.
To me, yeah.
Yeah, and so I guess my final comment would be that just reflecting on some of these observations, that it's often I think sometimes coaches over effort. So many of the things we all noticed were quite small, quite simple, staying in the language and the characters of the actual story. In terms of formulation, I have no idea where Neil's going with any of this. I'm just picking up clues as we go as to what's the next question. What are we noticing about this that might warrant more of our attention? And so the beauty of this was that both Neil and I were surprised, particularly Neil, by where this went, right? And when we started, if you'd asked me where it was going, I would have no idea, nor do I need to know. I just trust that whatever Neil can do right now, he's going to do. And here we go. Yeah. All right.